I want everybody, ladies and gentlemen, to look at the pain of Khadija Ahmed. I want everybody to take a second here. That this family, the pain that this family is going through, don't think that this cannot happen to another Canadian family. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, this could have happened to anyone. But it happened to the Al-Basnawi family, and they've taken the courage and the painful effort of speaking their story. When I think about Brother Abdurrahman al-Basnawi and I see the pain of Sister Khadija, I think of my mother. I think of my mother who many years spent speaking to different doctors, leading the charge to give Sulaiman, Allah yarhamu, the help that he needed, the pain that he went through. And it was that assistance, that unflinching, unwavering love that a mother gave to her vulnerable son that kept my late brother alive for 11 years later. And I think this is very important in that, like, with respect to mental illness, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an educator when it comes to the illness itself, but I have experience in knowing the pain is that when you think of someone suffering from mental illness, the most significant aspect of someone, when someone is suffering from mental illness is family support. They took Sulaiman's family support away. He was only there for 11 days. Now, when we look at Brother Abdurrahman's illness, the family support that they've taken away, I warn everybody, that is literally between life and death, right? And this is something that we all need to understand, right? What Sister Khadija is telling us through her pain is not just the injustice, but the fact that every day and slowly Abdurrahman's condition is deteriorating because there's many things going on here. One, he's a non-US national living in the United States. Two, the fact that Osama and Sister Khadija cannot see him, that they literally have to travel for long distances, goes a long way in his health deteriorating by the minute. And so when I'm hearing this story, I'm hearing multiple things. One, there's a lot of work for us to do as a community, as Canadians at large. Anybody who has a loved one with respect to mental illness has a stake in the story. Anyone who has some semblance of compassion and understanding the strong civic engagement of what justice stands for has a stake in this story. Anyone who believes in that society to be tempered by compassion has a stake in this story. Now, when you look at the conditions of what Brother Abdurrahman is going through, solitary confinement, no proper medication, no mental health treatment, no family calls, lack of commissary money, and therefore lack of essential items, harsh punishment for minor infractions, and torture. Now, when I look at this list, the first three, solitary confinement, no proper medication, no proper mental health treatment, no family calls. This is carbon copy to what happened to Sulaiman. This is carbon copy to what happens to Canadians every day. Every day, Canadians suffer through these things, people that suffer through mental illness within the prison system. This is carbon copy. And so as a nation and as a society, we have to truly have to worry about this when there's a Canadian national in foreign territory that's suffering through this. And with the solitary confinement, I want to add here something very important. And Dr. Mazir will probably talk more of this, and so will probably Brother Khalil or Hassan Shibli as well, is that under the United Nations Convention on Human Rights, putting anyone who's not even suffering from mental illness more than 15 days is considered torture. Okay, Sulaiman was put into solitary confinement for 11 days at the Central East. It's a jail in Eastern Ontario. So this is very important. These are human rights that are being abused every day. And I think all of us, we need to think about these big concepts for us to understand that they're being infringed on, in this. So with that, with these things in mind, I wanted to before I transitioned to entrapment, I wanted to get a couple of excerpts from doctors, and also an excerpt from a friend at CAMH that was a friend of Abdulrahman. Dr. Catherine Porterfield, clinical instructor of psychiatry at New York University School of Medicine and senior psychologist at NYU Program for Survivors of Torture, who worked with Abdulrahman since January 2017 for a year or so, testified in court. Quote, actually, really the most important work with Mr. Al-Basnawi has been watching him come to understand himself and come to understand that he's suffering with mental illness. Mental illness can be a lifelong condition, but is also, we have abundant evidence of that ongoing treatment, identification of where the problem areas are, and real support works, and that people do get well, unquote. Another quote from Dr. John Mariani, research psychiatrist at New York State Psychiatric Institute and associate professor of clinical psychiatry at Columbia University's Medical Center of Psychiatry, who worked with Abdulrahman since 2017, testified, I have certainly seen in my work with him reason to be optimistic about his future. And certainly my professional opinion is that treatment of substance use problems and psychiatric conditions in general is a worthwhile, in many cases results in good outcomes. Now I want to leave the last part before I get to Brother Khalil. There's an excerpt from Abdulrahman's friend, and I want everybody to listen to this carefully. Abdul was a dear friend of mine. Abdul is a wonderful man who needs help, not to be forgotten in a cell. He comforted me in my darkest hour, and I wish I could find a way to help him. Abdul is not a monster. He's a human and was a child when this all happened. Abdulrahman is a young man with mental illness with no history of violence. He needs support from his family, community, and mental health services that are available in Canada, unlike the United States. He put context into the human man that Abdulrahman was, the young man that he was. I think this is very important for us to keep in mind when we're looking at individuals suffering from mental illness.